Hey man, get up. You good?
You know, you guys don't give me enough credit for my high-level 10,000 IQ brain on this channel. I have wanted to show you guys footage of the LAPD last second rescuing a pilot from a plane, a small cargo plane, that crash landed onto train tracks for about ever since the moment I saw that video. However, I believe in narrative cohesion above all other things in society. It is the most important value, so to speak, so I needed to incorporate this in a story that also had something to do with LA or trains. And what do you know? I found a story related to LA and trains, and I'm gonna break it down for you because thieves have destroyed the infrastructure of LA so much, a train literally derailed due to it. But before we get into that, since I healthily crafted a well-rounded narrative for you, we have a sponsor. It's Health with Justice. We're gonna roll to them, and then we're gonna come back on the other side. Look at me move this hand. One of the reasons you get wrinkles on your face and visible signs of aging is a lack of collagen. Collagen is the protein that keeps your skin elasticy and all young looking and whatnot, and you lose about 10% of your collagen every single year. But fear not, the world is not at an end for you. You are not going to look like an old for the rest of your life, because you can go over and get some collagen powder over at healthwithjustice.com. This collagen powder is pretty simple, pretty basic. I scoop a cup in my coffee in the morning, and it definitely works. I'm not saying anything, but when I was in Texas with Nuance Bro, who apparently, allegedly, according to some people, used to look younger than me, I got carded for my purchases, and he did not. They were like, Sean, you're an itty bitty baby. We need to see some ID. This isn't gonna work. There is no way you are older than this other man. And I credit Health with Justice for all of that. Go to healthwithjustice.com, 51% off, healthwithjustice.com. So a little while ago, one of you guys out there in the audience sent me a news story related to a train derailment in Los Angeles. And I, being the great guy that I am, looked at this story, checked only the headline, and immediately threw it in the bin, banned the guy from the Discord who sent it to me, because there's no way I was going to cover a train derailment. However, and I do mean how and then ever, I did ultimately end up looking at this story because I was bored and I needed something to read. And when I did, I realized that that person that I banned from my Discord, that person that I crushed their dreams, insulted personally, actually sent me a gem of a story. So I know you're lost to the world. I know you're angry, but person who sent me this story, I'm sorry I reacted so negatively to you sending me the story, but in reality, it's probably your fault. Also, a lot of people are going to think that this is serious. I don't ban people from sending me stories, even if they're stories that I don't initially think are genius. That being said, though, this story about this derailment actually connects to another story that is related to something that we have been following very closely on this channel. Years ago at this point, I did a video on Sean King or George Soros. It's actually Sean King and George Soros backed district attorneys running for office, getting the district attorney position, and refusing to prosecute a multitude of crimes, and how that would lead to a crime surge. I've also talked about multiple different times how poverty as the root cause of crime is not something that actually causes crime, and I presented data related to the crime rates related to poverty, and I've proven this out. However, I did say, and I did assert, and I still say, and I still assert, that crime can drive poverty, and this is a perfect example of that also happening. Also, this story factors in the absolute decay and trashiness of LA, meaning it is literally covered in trash. So I'm going to bring that all home to you. I just bumped the microphone again. I'm not even going to cut that out because I've been talking uninterrupted. Didn't stumble my words, so this is staying in. So I'm going to bring this as a whole to you, put it in a package, put a bow on it, and send it your way, only for it to be stolen by train thieves in Los Angeles County. Now, the LAPD has been making arrests. There have been a series of train robberies that have occurred ever since they stopped prosecuting people for crimes, and they've arrested hundreds of people, if not thousands of people at this point. The company that is being railjacked, I guess they call it railjacked or train jacked, I don't really know what the terminology is, has also doubled and then tripled their private security, only to be met with a prosecution's office that is not interested in actually pursuing these people.
Unbelievable sight along the Union Pacific Railroad in East LA. Trash and debris piled high, discarded packages covering the tracks left behind by thieves targeting cargo containers. This has really gone viral all over the world, and it's a problem so bad that Governor Newsom saw all that and came to town to try to clean it up.
Union Pacific, with its own police, say they've made arrests, but few result in serious charges, and no bail puts people back on the street.
Because what ends up actually happening is what they do when these people get arrested is the district attorney reduces the charges to misdemeanors, and most of the time, for jumping onto a moving train and robbing cargo for it, you don't even get a ticket for desk appearance, according to this National Review article that was sent to me. However, it's actually a lot more terrible than you can possibly imagine, because these thieves open up packages that are intended for people all across the country, and they discard the boxes, the garbage, the refuse of what they don't steal all along the track. This causes a big danger to trains. And if you were wondering to yourself, can that actually derail a train? Well, I got news for you. A train derailed along this very track, and you can see the cardboard and all this, and it does have an impact. So you're actually destroying the infrastructure that brings in the stuff that they're stealing. The criminals should actually be put to work to clean this stuff up. Otherwise, their operation is going to be at an end.
An investigation is underway into what caused a train to derail in Lincoln Heights today.
It happened in the same area. NBC4 caught thieves breaking into cargo trains and stealing packages back in November. News Chopper 4 Alpha was over the tracks at Alhambra Avenue and Workman Street earlier tonight.
Now, to give you an idea about the scale of the problem that we're dealing with, and let me emphasize this so it can be clear, this is not just a California problem. This is a problem for our nation as a whole. 40% of the cargo that is imported from abroad comes through ports in California. This is loaded on rail cars to be transported across the country. So if you've expected a delay or one of your packages went missing or something similar, chances are this could be due to the fact that thievery is up an astounding 300% ever since the George Floyd riots. Yes, you heard that right. Railway thievery is up. Now, I don't like using percentages in a lot of my reporting because percentages can oftentimes be very deceptive. If something happens 3 times in 1 year and then the next year it happens 6 times, you could say that that's a doubling or a 100% increase, but those could sound far more dramatic compared to what was actually going down. But just so you guys can know, we're not talking about little itty bitty baby numbers. They're reporting 90 carts per day are being infiltrated by these thieves. 90 a day. Union Pacific Rail describes this as an unprecedented organized criminal operation against their cargo, and all types of cargo are being affected. Not just Louis Vuitton handbags, flat screen TVs, Tesla parts, but also medical supplies, including COVID-19 rapid tests that supposedly the pandemic is the #1 problem in this country. Well, that's all being stolen by these thieves in LA. And even though Union Pacific has its own police force, because you're required to have your own police force, your police force is only as good as when you can actually make arrests and whether or not the prosecution will do their job to get those people off the streets. And that is not what is happening. Also, they're not cleaning up all the debris around the tracks, so it's making LA look like a third world hellscape, and this track is barely functional, making it easier for more and more thieves to jump on board the trains and break in and steal this cargo. So it's a perpetuating cycle.
Governor Newsom on the Union Pacific Railroad tracks, another carefully organized media opportunity to show him as a hands-on leader as he cleaned up what's left behind by thieves breaking into trains while trying to make sure he doesn't have to come back again.
Now, I talk often about how crime actually drives poverty, not the other way around, and this is a perfect example of this. Some of the results that you would expect from all this cargo being stolen repeatedly from trains in California is higher prices for the consumer. However, people don't really notice small, little increases in prices unless they're actually substantial, so maybe, that's not the best thing for you to keep in your brain. But you also have issues of the fact that Union Pacific can't operate its cargo business if it cannot ensure its clients a level of safety that will make them happy. So what they're actually going to end up doing is pull out of their business in California or greatly reduce the amount of cargo they're willing to transport from California. Now, a lot of the Union Pacific employees work in the state of California. And if they're doing less business and they need less people, what do you think happens to a bunch of those employees? Obviously, they're going to be laid off. And as this tends to happen, those people will go in unemployment and have way worse potential outcomes, all because the district attorney doesn't want to prosecute these cases. On top of that, there's downstream effects, because where do you think these workers go and eat lunch? There's probably local restaurants that are set up around stations that are depending on those employees in order to function. And we all know restaurants have been hit really hard by the government reaction to the pandemic, so they're going to see lost revenue because of that as well. On top of that, there are repair people and all these other technical positions that work in relation to the train loading and unloading and all of that, separate employees from the people who are actually driving the trains, that will also be reduced in their hours or reduced in their occupation. And just like that, California, who has all the natural geographic advantages to be an economic powerhouse, which is one of the reasons why it still is an economic powerhouse, based solely on the fact that they refuse to enforce property rights and prosecute criminals for stealing, are creating an environment that is conducive to creating more and more poverty. Not to mention the fact that as this track gets dirtier and messier and looks more abandoned, this invites more criminality. If you look at something and it looks like nobody's watching it, nobody's protecting it, it looks like a pile of crap, people are going to treat it like a pile of crap. So all the litter, all the nonsense that's affected in this place is going to expand and get worse and slow down the trains even further, and thus keep perpetuating that cycle, because the California prosecutor, LA's prosecutor, refuses to do the job that was entrusted to them because they're a terrible person. And the police are doing their best. Look at the police pull people off the tracks in order to save them. You think these guys aren't gung-ho about doing their job? It's all down to the district attorney and the activists that embolden those district attorneys. And again, this affects all of us nationwide, because a lot of the stuff that we order, that we need, comes from California. And that's not just on an individual level with consumer goods, that's also on a business level. If you're getting your components and the price of that goes up, you're going to have a lot more problems. I mean, I've been showing you some insane images that look like an abandoned rail station in a long forgotten town, but again, this is a functioning rail station. If you look at the news reports where the train derailed, all that cardboard, all those boxes, all that garbage is still there. And if you think maybe because Gavin Newsom came down and he visited, things are going to get better, maybe because Gavin Newsom faced a recall and he's going to be real serious about all of this, Gavin Newsom was afraid to call the gangs that are behind this gangs because he thought that might be offensive language.
And I say that with emphasis. I see what you see, I see what you've been covering, I see what everybody's seeing, asking myself what the hell is going on. We look like a third world country, these images, the drone images that are on the nightly news, day in and day out. Some networks weaponizing them for their own, political agenda, and others just reporting the damn news fairly and appropriately. And just mark my words, this is not one-off, this is organized theft. These are organized gangs of people that are coming out, and forgive me for saying gangs, I know that's not a pejorative. They're organized groups of folks. Forgive me for saying gangs. Forgive me for saying gangs.
It's not going to get better at all in California until they throw the bums out. Now, if Larry Elder was the governor, and if I was a governor in any of these states, and I had a ridiculous district attorney that was refusing to do their job, I would essentially just use my power to appoint a special prosecutor for the time being to prosecute all the cases that this person just refuses to do. You cannot ignore crime. You cannot excuse crime. We've been over this time and time again. Income inequality, poverty, racism, all these excuses that the left gives for why crime happens, for why crime spikes happen, are not the case. They have been proven false time and time again. However, lax enforcement, this idea that we pretend that criminals are victims, this disassociation of the criminal, their individual responsibility, and their actions, all of that drives crime. Before the massive crime wave in the United States of America, the thing that we responded to with mass incarceration and other criminal justice related policies, the sentence that you would get for murder, for killing somebody, was about 5 years. That's a serious crime, and you were only serving 5 years if you committed it. Obviously, with weak deterrence, with a weak constitution in a public to go after criminals, you are going to have a resurgence of criminals. These people would not be out there, they said it explicitly time and time again, if they weren't getting repeated slaps on the wrist. They're not even, again, paying fines for doing all this theft. They're not paying any restitution. None of that restorative justice nonsense. They're just being let go and treated by victims, and you're having write-ups and think pieces about how the real culprit of this is poverty. If only we could arrest poverty. If only somebody would put out an APB, an Amber Alert. If only we had a description of what poverty was wearing, the police could pull over poverty, and then they could prosecute poverty for all the crimes against civilization and our society. It's absolutely ridiculous to assert this hypothesis over and over again. It's absolutely ridiculous to blame the COVID recession for all the crime that we're dealing with. We had the Great Recession in 2009 and crime went down, not up, because we were serious about criminal justice related policy. And remember, in 2009, we spent far less money on social programs, far less money on helping people out than we did in 2020 in relation to the pandemic. So if poverty's the cause, if recession's the cause, if it's the COVID recession, how come it didn't happen during the 2009 worst financial crisis since the Great Depression? I'll tell you how come that didn't happen, because suppose economic deprivation is not the root cause of crime, and obsessing about root causes, trying to find excuses, actually creates policies that create room for more and more crime. That's why crime went down in the 2008 Great Recession, and that's why crime is going up and started going up during the effects of the George Floyd riots. It's not because we didn't have a generous enough system. It's not because we didn't give enough people enough stimulus checks, enough unemployment. Again, we gave way more. It's because we've gone soft on crime post George Floyd. This is George Floyd's legacy derailing that train in California, if you were confused. Now, there's something about this story that I need to address. It's actually in the headline of this story, and it talks about the involvement of the FBI in these train robberies, or as I like to say, and as reality would like to say, the complete and utter lack of involvement of the FBI in these train robberies. Remember, these trains are interstate trains. They intend on crossing state lines.
Who crossed state lines. He drove from Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now again, he drove from Illinois to Wisconsin. It's not like he was in his front yard. And he was approached by a group of individuals who posed an imminent threat to his life. He drove across state lines in a state that he doesn't even live in, and then he crossed state lines with it. He crossed state lines, meaning he traveled across state lines. He traveled there from out of state, who again traveled across state lines.
Across state lines.
Across state lines.
And unlike Kyle Rittenhouse's alleged did not happen crossing of state lines, the state lines crossing here are incredibly relevant. Remember, the federal government has the right to regulate interstate commerce. These people are on tracks meant to go between the states for the purpose of commerce. If there was ever a constitutional justification for the FBI, for the Department of Justice to go after these criminals, this would be it. However, when you go to Merrick Garland's office, when you knock on his door, mum is the word. They're trying to figure out ways to deal with January 6th. Where were you January 6th? I was in a car dealership trying to buy a new car. What ended up happening was the guy tried to tell me that frame damage wasn't that serious, and I said it was serious, and then I looked up as our republic was falling on the television, and I realized what was actually serious. Where were you January 6th? I was in a car dealership looking at a car. Frame damage, republic damage. Where were you? Tell me in the comments down below. Now, obviously, the evil bad orange man making the republic fall by sending in his soldiers to overthrow the election and destroy democracy in the world is a high priority for the Justice Department, but you know, it's a big department. Merrick Garland should be able to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. If he's gonna save our republic from the January 6th terrorists, this worse than 9/11 style event, he should also do something about crime, you know, so the people in the republic can have jobs and a safe place to live. I know January 6th, very serious, top of the priority list, but this should be, you know, one of the other priorities. This should be something to consider, something to think about. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you guys agree with Merrick Garland that January 6th is the #1 absolute priority. Anyway, that's really all I have to say for you guys today. This story is so insane. The fact that these train robbers are just getting away with it. The fact that there's so much garbage, it's literally derailing a train. California is literally being sucked into its own filth based on their terrible left-wing policies, and almost nobody's reporting on it. People are still in denial about it. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments down below. If you like the video, you can show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. You can follow me on my social medias. They're linked in the description. You can support me via the support links. This is me talking about the thing of the thing and the thing. Till next time.